Right, this is part 6. I'm going to dedicate this part. I was going to end it here, but I've got too much I need to keep telling. I want to dedicate this whole part here to the mortuary of what went on. Instead of just trying to bring it back and forwards, I'd rather just do it now, get it out the way, because it played a big part. So I can't really leave it out. So, when I first started at the hospital, I was very curious about the place, and yes, I was quite very intimidated and very nervous about the place. Then I kind of got a love for the place. I started to, I volunteered for every job I could in there, I wanted to experience all those I wanted to experience everything I could, and I did experience a lot in there. I learnt a lot, I saw a lot, and but towards the end, I ended up actually it became part of my shift. It became X-ray mortuary, and that was like years after. But I'd always done jobs in there in between, because they kind of like had a cleaner. His name was Roger Davidson, and he was like Lurch from the Addams Family. He was like, and it used to bewilder me that he would just walk through there in the dark. And I remember one time I was buffing the floor. I was taken over from him, so I just started a bit earlier, and he comes running up to me and he says, "You laddie, come with me." And anyone who knows this man knows that sounds a bit like him. Yeah. I follow him down to the mortuary. He opens the doors up. He opens the second doors up. He comes to the big huge. It's got a big huge door there, and you put your combination in, and then you slide it across. And he says to me, opens it up and says, "Look, are you responsible for this?" And I went, "For what?" He goes, "Look, that dead woman's uncovered." She wasn't uncovered as in like naked or anything like that, but I mean her head was uncovered. And I said, "No, I always cover them back up when they've finished viewing and stuff." And he said, "Well, must have been security. Never mind." So this guy was like really, yeah. If you're from the Gisborne Hospital and you were kind of old school, or you'd been there for a few years, you know who this guy is. And he's passed away now, but he had incredible stories. Some of the stories he used to tell were very interesting. He's a very interesting man, but he was the kind of guy that you either could deal with or you couldn't. He could be very angry. I've seen him pick up a wheelchair one time and throw it down the corridor just because it was in the wrong place. So what I used to do is, when I used to come in to take over from him on night shift, I was like him. I kind of used to come. Oh no, he would come over and take over from me on night shift. Yeah, I was on doing the evening and he was the night man. Yeah, I did that right. Sorry. And so he was the night man, and so I was still doing my stuff, and he'd start buffing real early, and I went over to him and I used to say to him, I'd say, "Oh, Roger." He goes, "What do you want?" And I used to say, I would say, "I'm going to go sit outside if you'd like to come out for a cigarette." "No, laddie, I've got work to do." And I, okay. And then I tell you what, you'd give it 5 minutes, and he'd be sitting down beside me. Would be sitting outside the area that used to face Ward 4, and he would sit there and just tell me about the Cook Hospital days, how he was so happy in that space. He used to laugh, and he always used to tell his stories. And the funny thing with Roger is, whenever he tells you a story where there was a bit of a dilemma, he always sounds like he was the hero. And but he really admired the older nurses who were there, and you know, he loved the place. That place was his heart. He loved that place, and he was the man who looked after the morgue, and it was perfect. He was a big, tall guy, spooky looking, and he used to walk with a creepy kind of limp, and so he was the perfect guy, and he loved it. You've got to have a passion for the place to really want to get in there and you know, work and keep it up to a good standard. Not that he did good, but his cleans were based around certain times of the week. He'd do a clean and then that would be it. When I kind of was doing it, I kind of like would always check every day, you know, when I was working, and I'd make sure that everything was okay, stocked up. I just kind of did that extra step where then he also got paid for his cleans, where I didn't want to get paid. I always felt that when I got to you know, I felt that I don't want to be paid this. I'm doing this for the patients, the deceased patients, and for their families who come in here, and for the staff in general, you know, and for my bosses and stuff. You know, the whole thing for me was doing it for, so I didn't want to be paid. But the thing is, what you do is you never stop putting your mortuary forms in, because when you've got companies that are only interested in doing everything on the tight, they'll take that away from you if they can. So I because I was in there so much, I didn't really get paid for doing that the special cleans, unless it was a real special clean. But even then, I would shorten the time. I would be in there for a very long time doing something, but I would cut it right down so that I didn't get a lot of money for the clean that I was doing for the time, because I didn't want to do that. And it got to the point where I didn't want to, when we picked up the deceased, I didn't want to be paid for it. I would give a form to someone else, and as long as you make sure that that person's on in that shift at that time, it's okay, because the company's still got to pay someone. So you just give the form to someone else, say, hey, I've got a body form here for you if you want it, because I wanted to serve people, you know. I already got paid for doing my work, my job, so I thought those little jobs, they weren't little, they were big, were important to me. So I had a deep caring for the deceased, even, you know, while I was still working. And I pride myself on my care of that place, and I eventually ended up being the caretaker and I was very proud of that. I would collect the linen, get all the linen and stock everything up. I would get everything stocked up for the funeral. I looked after the funeral people as best I could. They did such a good job, those guys. You know, I think anyone who knows funeral people, boy, they always got a smile on their face, but they do the most hard jobs, you know. And at that same time, yeah, so I think I kind of got known as, in that hospital, as probably the little ghoul. I've been called a ghoul before. Okay, you're quite a ghoul, aren't you? Well, yes. Yeah, so I was kind of known as the person that kind of like was there, yeah, and got to experience a lot of things. I love to pray for the deceased. I'd always pray, and as further got on, as time went on, I got more organised and stuff, and by the end, I was actually putting my hand upon people's heads who would come in, and I'd be saying a prayer for them, just for the Lord to come and guide them. You know, I didn't know what religion they were, whatever, or anything like that, but I did a neutral, just come, please guide this person with love and forgiveness. Just to give them some help. And there were special peeps, there were special people who came in, and I'm not mean special as like queens or things like that, but I mean people that I kind of knew, and I would always go and get them a flower, or if it was a little child, I would get them a flower, and I would get them books and toys, and I turned their little trolley into a shrine of, just like I do with the boys, how I've got all the boys' toys on the floor. I would surround them with toys, books and everything, and I'd visit them and change their flowers, and I treated everybody like they were still living. I treated the dead like they were still there, you know, that they were still around and they deserved to be treated fairly. And I had a couple of I had spiritual encounters in there for sure. We used to have there was a painting on the wall, and it was Vicky's painting, and it was a painting of a conquistador, and one of the security guards, Dion, he used to call him Cortez, but I used to call him Frederick. And I noticed over time that Frederick's face would change. He had two looks that I saw. It was unhappy, or it was content. He had two looks. And I used to be amazed at his face, how he would change. So when I came in, I could tell what type of mood this dude was in the painting. And like for me, you know, I always tried to get, as I got older, I always sought confirmation for things that happened, because when I was a kid, I just kind of like didn't want to know, you know, but I didn't have a choice. It doesn't care. If you're connected to, being connected to the spiritual realm is like being in a culture. You know, it doesn't care whether you want to be part of that culture or not, or part of that race of people. It's happening. You are there. You're not going anywhere. You know, you can try and pray it away, you can do whatever you can try and ignore it and everything, and you can try and put it to a point where it's nearly gone, but it will always come back, and then you'll be left with a big eureka moment, sitting there going, what the hell just happened, you know? So it's like that, and I'm glad it's like that, because when I went through Christianity, I tried to knock it down. It didn't work, it didn't go down. I tried to turn it into thinking that it was evil, and Christianity, religion, has a way of telling you that everything's evil, unless we say it isn't, or the Bible says it isn't. So you kind of become very paranoid and thinking there's something wrong with me. This shouldn't be happening. But hey, I saw this guy at the end of my bed, heard angels singing. The thing is, my things were still happening, but they were religious based. So I was still connected to the spiritual realm, but I was receiving what my inner being had decided to become. Because when you become a Christian, especially a born again Christian, and you're young, you have this desire to be full on. Right, I'm going to end this one, I'm going to come back.